Well, it's that time of the league again. The Tornado Shot swap is here. Mirror bow acquired. Exciting indeed. Time to play the game all over again. Alright, what's going on, guys? New here. You knew it was coming. Here it is, a first look at the swap. Some background footage for you, for your entertainment. Just a real quick teaser. This video is going to be a first look at the swap, how I did the swap, everything kind of taken into consideration. Many of you have requested this video, and maybe you just be kind of interested in how it goes down. Tornado Shots, of course, still the most highly sought after bow skill gem for the super late endgame, if you can make it work, if you can invest enough, whether Deadeye or Warden. We're going to be looking at Warden today. I'm not going to be talking about Deadeye, really. Just going to be looking at what the Warden has to offer, which is Tinctures, primarily. The crazy, immense power of Tinctures, so we're going to be taking a deeper look into that. A lot of new items purchased, a few changes to the skill gem, just basically looking at the difference. I've even updated the PoE League starter to include yet this variant now, so I suppose next league, you'll get a sense of even further progression that you could do. Everybody loves a Tornado Shot swap, especially if they're the one playing the build. It's something like triple DPS, and it makes you feel like you're playing the game all over again. It's why so many of us bow enjoyers enjoy bows so much. And yeah, I'm here to bring you along for the ride. Okay, so let's go ahead and break down this particular variant that I'm going with, what it's like to go from Element of the Spectrum to this version, especially if you're following along. It'll be good. Even if you're just kind of listening on the sidelines, it could be interesting to hear yet another take on an elemental hit base Tornado Shot build. Warden this time, Fizz to Cold conversion, still Trinity. So yeah, basically Elemental of the Spectrum I was using at the super endgame version was a Nimbus return projectile setup. It of course performs extremely well in the early game, even in the mid game and in the late game, but it does cap out in its strengths. The best you can do is kind of stand in the hitbox of an enemy, try to force tornadoes out, and then with the Nimbus ring and far shot get maximum damage, pelting the tornadoes and the enemy at the same time. And it is pretty remarkable how much damage you can pump in that, but it's very position based. So we're going from far shot fledgling to Heatshiver with no Nimbus, obviously, and using point blank. Okay, it's focused on point blank, a single target. The clear is still obviously excellent, even if you're at range with Tornado Shot. Has a lot of hits that go on well beyond point blank, but the point is it's on demand damage near you, single target, if you need it. Heatshiver works extremely well with a Fizz to Cold conversion build, generally speaking, although it can be a little precarious if you're not getting the ailments out like you would normally want to. Now, we have some extremely strong ailment tech over here, most notably Oath of Winter, which works exceptionally well for freeze, no matter how tanky the enemy is. In most cases, they're going to be permanently frozen. Ironically, chill is a bigger issue because we don't have something that just automatically gives us maximum chill. I'm talking, of course, 1,000, 2,000 pilfered card bosses, uber bosses, 10k wisp, wildwooded rogue exiles, some of the tankiest monsters in the game, may not necessarily be getting max chill, and that could be a problem as this build, the way it's set up in the numbers and the calculations in the path of building, the maximum fire damage is only a little bit more than the minimum cold damage, moderately more. So the chill and freeze are both mandatory in order to unlock Trinity, which can, in some cases, not be working, especially if you're not already getting Heatshiver. So you can see it's kind of an engine that has to be jump-started in maps. It works pretty well. I have had issues with it in the past, but trying to maximize as much of the value as you can out of this tech. And so it is very tech heavy, the way the whole thing works together. And then of course, Oath of Winter giving you the freeze. I just so happen to revert back to Ahuana's Bite, got the chain, and then getting the extra chill in here seemed to be actually a little bit better than conventional Quiver. For now, I'm not 100% sold on this, but I really like how this kind of supercharges that. And of course, we're still using Bone Chill as well. So getting a lot of chill tech and freeze in here that helps elevate Heatshiver. It vastly outperforms Far Shot variant with Fledgling, especially when you have Trinity in play. The only other major thing to say about what we're doing here is Tinctures. All right, so the swap out of Oath of Summer and Avatar of the Wilds to full-blown Tincture tech, this is where the fun really took place. And a lot of you have been asking, well, Snoo, can you just go Tinctures early on with Elemental of the Spectrum? Actually, it turned out you can. I did experiment with that right before the swap, just to see, so I can answer that question once and for all through first-hand experience. Yeah, it looks like it is slightly more damage, but you know, it requires you to obviously keep the tinctures on, and it seems to be maybe a little bit lower performing compared to Avatar of the Wilds when it is on. However, I feel like it was worth doing if you don't mind, you know, the tincture. It just seemed like it wasn't necessarily worth it because obviously, you know, tinctures are something else you have to keep track of that you wouldn't normally have to. And to me, it only makes sense to use these if they're just far and away more powerful than any other option. In which case, you know, once you're talking super endgame fizz, cold conversion, tornado shot, yes, that is in fact the case. And this is something that has kind of brought this build, this archetype back into the forefront in terms of the power that it has to offer. It's Warden Tinctures in super endgame fashion. Okay, double tier 1, weapon attack speed. Okay, this ends up being just a crazy amount. We have over 100% increased tincture effect all in total because there's a whole bunch of points in the passive tree taken. That, I mean, it's over. I get over half my crit from this tincture, just to give you an idea. And then just an exceptional amount of elemental pin and elemental damage coming off of this one. If I turn the tinctures off, I'm only doing about a quarter of the damage that I normally do on the build. So yeah, the tinctures are something like quadrupling my DPS. So here's where a lot of the tincture tech is in the passive tree, okay? Basically just effect, just increasing the effectiveness of it. And then 3 points over here. Makes it a lot more sense to use the unnatural instinct down in this corner when you kind of want to path over here. These one single point, giving 10% increased effective tinctures is more damage than any other thing that you can possibly do with a single point. Real quick side point, Runegraph the Warp is here, but with Tornado Shot, you kind of want more projectile speed. I'm thinking about moving this off of here onto just some random tincture mastery that isn't that necessary, that important. I don't really think I'm going to use a tincture mastery unless maybe I want to get, you know, flask effect or something like that. We'll see. For the current time, I can't really afford the passive point though. This build is really tight on passives, so yeah, that's where we're at. By the way, I've not made the complete swap yet. As you're going to see, particularly this cluster, still haven't swapped it over to the one I need to, so this is not exactly a dead cluster, but not getting anywhere near as much value out of this right now that I was on the previous build. So we'll be spending the rest of the video in Path of Building, just kind of looking at some of the numbers. You can see all the variants, all right? So I got the whole thing, I guess. Hopefully this will hold for the following league. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to do this build yet again in the next time we have a new league, but here it is, Cold Convert Tornado Shot. It's done, it's here. This is a very nice clean setup, no mirror tier gear in place, but you can see, actually here, let me do the loadouts here, going from the Nimbus projectile one, and this had, by the way, an integer of 3 on account of Nimbus as well as Tornado being hit with the AoE, which I feel like was quite reliable. You could see the damage, extreme amount of damage increase if you stand in the hitbox of the enemy. That seemed to be fairly accurate to me. If we go up here with average Tornado Shot hits, which is kind of a new thing on here, it's projected combined average projectiles. I don't think I'd really need to mess with this. You can see it's actually a lot more damage, and that is with the sort of prime setup. This is, by the way, with a crafted bow as opposed to mirror bow. Once I put the mirror bow on, well, the damage nearly doubles there. But let's bring it back to the bow I was using a second ago, and we're going to talk about this variant. I'm going to just kind of show you what's going on here. Quick little side point, especially last time, and almost certainly if and when I start doing wisped content, I end up taking this mastery here. Enemies poisoned by you cannot deal critical strikes and only convert 99% of fizz to cold. This gives this build virtual 100% crit immunity. Immunity to crit damage. And this is extremely important when you're messing with blue juice, Wildwood content. Rogue Exiles, normal, magic packs, anything. And it just requires 4 passive points and then 99, not 100% conversion. Right now this setup is set to 100%, but just to give you a sense of some extreme amount of value here. You still get a little bit of attack speed too, and you're inside the Elegant Hubris, so that is nice. Quick side point, Lethal Pride is obviously really nice with the double damage. However, no matter how I cut it, I can only get, I think, 4 or 5, maybe up to 5. Yeah, if it makes sense to me, 5 double damage node didn't really seem to outperform some of the better Brutal Restraint seeds anyway, and that's not even counting movement speed and stuff. So this is one of the better seeds get a lot of movement speed on top of damage. Increased aura effect on hatred is pretty extreme amount of damage increase. So yeah, I am still going with brutal restraint. Oh yeah, I actually need the dex too, to wear this chest. Apparently this chest, which, you know, I'm not going for a lot of evasion, but this gives so much evasion, it does in fact enable me to have over 50% chance to evade without even prioritizing evasion, which is really nice. And I've decided to add a new medium cluster here with Blast Freeze and Storm Rider. I'm trying to get my links figured out in a better sense, so I like the idea of putting Storm Rider here. Blast Freeze is actually really strong with this build because since we have Oath of Winter, quite often what happens is you're not actually freezing everything on the initial hit, but you send this into a pack of monsters. You know, it's got a bunch of little minions near the, you know, the leader of the pack or whatever. And when you have something like Blast Freeze on, this basically just forces every arrow to just freeze everything on the screen at all times virtually, as opposed to taking, you know, a few shots to actually get all those freezes out, even with Oath of Winter. And this is really helpful. It has no benefit single targets, really just for, you know, mapping. Possible alternatives is the Streamlined Repeater cluster or the Quick Getaway Pressure Points cluster. If you do want to get the double damage, that one's pretty nice too. Or you can just drop the cluster and put those 4 points somewhere else, which is not a terrible idea either. Because that Tincture is giving me so much crit, I've actually decided to save points, not doing King of the Hill, even though this is kind of nice. A lot of extra damage here on the bow crit, the crit multi. I just get essentially 0 value out of crit chance. In fact, I'm using an Elegant Hubris C that doesn't have crit chance, I believe. For that reason as well, so kind of saving some points here. Also didn't take long shot anymore. Maybe a couple other things I'm forgetting, yeah, like Aspect of the Eagle. That's where we're saving some of the points on the passive tree, but basically everything else looks kind of normal. If I had another point, might put it in Harrier. Not exactly sure, but yeah, this is where we're at right now. Going down the line for skill gems, nothing's changed on here, except that I can't technically use level 20 Elemental Weakness, don't have the intelligence for it. We do have a possible point here on Thief's Craft, but you're going to see I do have some intelligence on gear, some new gear coming into play. I don't think there's any other difference there. You can always lower, by the way, you can lower Tornado. I don't think it really matters if Tornado is rank 1 or rank 20, because it's really about the projectiles chaining off of it or forking off of it, not about its damage. And it's constantly respawning anyway through cast on crit link, so might be smarter to just leave it at 1 to help with the mana. Now the actual Tornado Shot link is a little bit variable, alright? So I was using Ahuana's Bite, or well, I'm going to just put it this way. I'm using a unique quiver to get +1 arrow. Not +1 arrow, sorry. I mean, that is a really good corruption, but +1 chain. That way, instead of using Awakened Fork, which I want to actually show you this in real time. Look at the damage difference here. Okay, we got Awakened Fork. Even if I put this at, you know, level 6, which Awakened Fork is really strong. It's not the same as Chain, but it is very nice for the clear. It does make a difference. But just look at this. All right, see, the number here is 267 mil. If I take this and I replace, I believe crit damage is the worst one of the links, it's all the way down to 220. That's a huge DPS loss just on paper. Now, it is better clear. Even Awakened Fork is better clear than +1 chain, but the single target suffers greatly. And if I'm not mistaken, for the sake of the Tornado spawn, +1 chain is way more reliable for getting that additional damage out than Awakened Fork is. I'm talking about those projectiles ricocheting off the tornado and actually hitting the boss, where it keeps spawning right on top of it. And that's kind of a big deal, and it's not even represented in the Path of Building, by the way, because I'm not doing a second integer for the tornado. It's hard to say exactly how reliable Tornado is with Tornado Shot. There's just so many more variables involved to try and do that calculation, so we're just not really messing with it. But rest assured, it's free damage, and you're going to want at least fork or chain one way or another. So you could use a conventional quiver like this one. Okay, could use one like this one. Probably want flat lightning on there instead to force the you need to get the shock somewhere. But yeah, you can do that instead if you want. And in that case, if you were using a conventional quiver like that, you would be using fork instead of one of the other support gems. To fit in all these auras, we've got 5 different reservation auras. There are 3 of them right here. We also have Precision off of Heary's Truth, and then I have Flesh and Stone now in here. So this is really nice. Going to get a little bit of extra survivability, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I will Enlighten 4 on top of a reservation Heatshiver corruption. You will see, you know, we're at a point now where I'm kind of expecting to get certain corruptions on gear, the cheaper gear, and, you know, not super expensive uniques, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some in the market available, and if nothing else, might have to make my own. Worst case scenario. Now here we got the Flame Dash link, and this is cast when damage taken, Immortal Call, which I do have endurance charges in the build now through the ring, and this is one reason why I've elected to go Storm Rider. So this in effect allows me to put Enhance in here. Enhance is really good for Flame Dash as well as Immortal Call. Immortal Call's cooldown reduction, cast when damage taken, reduced damage needed, and then Flame Dash cooldown reduction. All 3 of those are really quite potent for their value, and really good to be able to have an Enhance in a link like this. So Flesh and Stone is adjacent to the boots, and I really feel like Bone Chill is, I mean, especially if you're using Heatshiver, you're already going to be, whatever you're doing, you're going to set up for max chill scenario anyway, which makes Bone Chill really strong. It doesn't have to be derived from the main attack. It just needs to be somewhere. You need to have minimum chill on some other link like Frenzy to be getting it. And rest assured, this does get your minimum chill in virtually all situations. So this is a really nice little 3-link here. Quite often people put Power Charge on crit instead of Bone Chill here, but I really wanted to get Bone Chill if I could. So that is how I'm able to do Bone Chill plus Enhance. So anyway, that is yeah, that's all for that. Let's look at the items here. Okay, so we'll start with the bow. So this bow is probably going to confuse some of you just looking at it this way. I don't have an example of it, but I'll give you the quick and dirty on it. Okay, so this is your typical item level 86 pre-fractured 2 additional arrow spine bow, and it's going to be physical instead of elemental. Now this is really popular craft for like triple tier 1 elemental with, you know, attack speed, and then the Sphinx craft here with the strength, int, and crit. Essentially, this is about the same level difficulty, or shall we say investment, to make work. Instead of using an elemental essence to start with, we're using the physical estimate, or essence, Contempt. So this is flat fizz through deafening essence of Contempt, and we do that until hitting, I'd suppose, either tier 1 or tier 2 hybrid. That's Emperor or Dictator roll, and then have to clean up the remaining open prefix. Maybe hit Merciless anyway, and just kind of go with the flow on that. I guess prefixes cannot be changed, reforge Fizz in that case, and Pray. But the more conventional way, the more reliable way would be what you see here. Okay, hit Dictator or Emperor, and then the prefix cannot be changed. Reforge Veiled Chaos Orb. All right, Veiled Chaos Orb, 50-50 chance it hits prefix side. If you do unveil the prefix, the final prefix, very likely that you'll hit one of the percent fizz ones. I think there's like 4 different choices. And it doesn't have to be blind. It could be bleed or poison or whatever. Impale, I think, is the other one. And that gives you a nice, decent kind of tier 3 or tier 4 fizz roll, effectively. And then what that's going to do is it leaves you with really only one other choice for the 5th and 6th mod. You're going to want to do prefixes not be changed again, and then reforge speed until you hit a high tier attack speed, and then benchcraft the rest of the way, and that's where it's going to look here in the end. Keep in mind, though, this is only about half as strong as the mirror bow. Like, oh my god. See, this is why I wait. It's way more exciting when you actually wait to get that mirror bow. This is why I don't want to just make this bow here, but some of you have asked. So I figured I would just give you an option. This is a setup with no mirror gear. Definitely over a mirror investment in total, but no actual mirror gear involved. The body armor is an interesting one. Doriani Merc. That doesn't work with this build unless you decide to do Fizz to Lightning conversion, which is going to be totally different. Makes a lot more sense for Deadeye than it does for Warden, with everything in play, especially Oath of Winter. But you could run the Admiral body armor. Okay, the Admiral. Let me actually type that in here so you can see. Oh, I already did. This is the Admiral. Elemental damage you deal with hits is resisted by lowest elemental resistance instead. So all of your damage, whether it's, you know, fire or cold, which is primarily what we're doing, it does have an int roll, a little bit of all res, but I'm probably not going to do that because I'm not super keen on being overly reliant on a Merc for my damage. And just look at this body armor, though. The Hatred effect, the crit multi, the extreme life roll, the suppress getting capped, 2 major resistances. I don't know why I accidentally put 48 chaos res. I realized after the fact that I had room for chaos res. There we go. Okay, yeah. Chaos res or some other. And then you need the elemental ailment avoidance. The stun avoidance is also useful there. Really have to get elemental ailment avoidance here with the... kind of forgot to mention this jewel here, Ancestral Vision, paired with the Thick Skin Wheel to match all that up and actually be avoidance capped on elemental ailments. Otherwise, you're going to be running Purity of Elements, which I was doing before. Wanted to get some more, you know, better auras and heralds and whatnot in the build, so wanted to drop that. And then the percent life. So this body armor is giving a whole lot of different things that are really hard to replace, all things considered, by just some random unique that, yeah, it's very situational. So I'm not exactly keen on trying to put this chest and slam it into this build with all the different things that this body armor is doing. We'll see later on. That remains to be seen. The gloves are the same that I had before, except the prefixes were different, and then the implicit also changed. Basically got double conversion. I got very lucky and crafted these all in like one hit on stream earlier, but this is where we're getting a lot of our conversion done. The rest of it is through the Watcher's Eye, which I forgot to mention. New Watcher's Eye. I'm going to want to do cold convert and crit multi. You can be missing 1% and do the poison so the enemies can't crit you somewhere, either maybe on the explicit here or on the Watcher's Eye, 39%. Or if you want to do the full conversion, not worry about that. That's how this is set up here. But anyway, resistances, attack speed, the temple mod fractured, the new prog and damage speed moved over to the glove bench craft, better than leech, more reliable anyway. Still 2 rage on hit. Powerhouse gloves. I mean, Jesus Christ, that is a lot of value. In gloves, a very high-end craft. It's definitely quite expensive. Boots, another item that's carried over from the previous iteration. I said when I buy the boots, I'm going to buy one of the best pairs out there. I spent 100 divines. Just bought this straight off trade. It's hard to get all of the explicits this high, especially the 3rd suffix on a fugitive base. So yeah, that's the Tailwind Onslaught elusive boots in all their glory. It's one of the oldest, extremely endgame crafts, and it's here to stay. That's all that power it gives, especially if you are not a Deadeye. To get the Tailwind here, you get some of that Deadeye's sweet action speed. Here's Truth with another Clutch Corruption additional curse. Here's another place where, you know, between the helmet and the amulet, if you didn't have these particular corruptions and had to force the Whispers of Doom, maybe you're going to have to drop either Flesh and Stone or Herald of Purity. People keep asking me why not Yoke? Why not Yoke? Well, Yoke is alright, but I mean, everything's just set up so really nicely with this. I don't have Cull otherwise. The crit multi is really strong. I'd have to start investing points into, you know, invest points in acuity and all that if I didn't have this, so I would lose passive points effectively. Here's Truth is giving me a lot of extra value, and it's actually fairly easy these days to get one with additional curse, even well rolled. So yeah, decided to go with this amulet. I definitely have a thing for cheap uniques with Giga Clutch corruptions. Getting a whole lot of value out of them. I mean, just look at this. That, and that. Finally, a unique without a corruption. Alright, the taming is a holdover. This is actually not necessary, guys. So this build actually has a lot of breathing room here. I'm still capped. Actually, yeah, and not relying on the... I don't think I'm relying... Oh, I guess I am relying on that, actually, technically. Well, anyway. Almost 100% res capped without any flasks and without the taming. Probably going to want another rare ring, though, at some point, because that reduced mana cost is a big deal. Especially like getting Flame Dash. You get Flame Dash for free once you do that, and among, you know, a few other things. With the tinctures being the way they are, it's nice when you can reduce the mana cost of stuff. The crit multi, the intelligence roll here, intimidate on hit or onslaught on hit with, you know, synth rings, mirrored rings. Probably going to get a mirror ring eventually. But I like having the endurance charges here, so this is really nice to get that. It pairs up super well with our good old trusty, whatever it is, Immortal Call. Cast and damage taken in Mortal Call. By the way, the max fizz hit here at 11k, this is not with these on, okay? It goes up a lot more, you know, if I were to just add these things in. So this is what it looks like more in maps, but, you know, that's not active normally, single target. I have a gold flask as well. I did run that unique gold flask. I feel like it's a bit overrated, especially when I can just get more rarity by running a conventional gold flask. You can get about 90 or 100% rarity with the gold flask instead of quicksilver, but it depends on the content I'm doing. So I've been doing pilfer, divination, card farming. If I'm gonna be, you know, doing wildwood stuff, I'll probably put a gold flask on though. All right, so I guess we'll just take a quick look at the config here. I'll remove that. Ignited now, chilled, max chilled, hoarfrost, frozen, shocked, everything there. Rage, 30, nearby enemy 1, crit recently, frenzy power, enduring, charge not on there, 50 Trinity resonance count. So a lot of things to make this engine go, right? If I were to just suddenly remove all of my ailments, where'd my damage go, right? So here, if you want to know, hey Snoo, what's your reg? What modifiers can you not run? 70% chance for monsters to avoid elemental ailments, which becomes over 100%. That's one you can't run. That's it. That's basically it. I don't like monsters take reduced crit damage either. That one's really rough. But you can actually run elemental ailment avoidance maps if they're through the risk scare, because they'll cap out at 70%, and that's still okay. But as far as an actual map modifier, you do not want to remove ailments from this build. Way too important. Going on to the calculations, we have everything here. And yeah, you can see. I actually want to show you something real interesting, guys. Take a look at the speed here. Okay, attack rate. Attack rate 5.82. Seems pretty good. I do remember back in, I think, Affliction League, I had an attack rate of around 9, just to give you a sense of how much, you know, Tornado Shot was nerfed in its baseline attack. 5.82 still feels okay. Let's real quickly look at Crit Nimbus. Attack rate 4.15. So it is higher, even though swap to Tornado Shot. That's what Tinctures give you. I point this out because I want you to know it is technically possible to just go Tornado Shot with this variant. Okay, with the Nimbus variant. All you would do in this case as a baseline is you would swap Nimbus out for, you know, a second taming. This one, obviously. And then you would swap, let's see, I guess you'd swap Mirage Archer for Awakened Fork. And then Elemental His Spectrum for Tornado Shot. Boom. Now, there's still a tornado in play, so again, it's a little hard to tell exactly how much damage. It's about the same, actually. It's about the same amount of damage. The problem is attack rate, 3.32. This is why tinctures are so necessary. 3.32 attack rate does not feel good. That's where people come in and they say, hey, Tornado Shot's clunky. This is still like 500 divines investment right here. 3.32 with no tinctures. This is why I do the swap all at once, okay? Wait for the really, really good bow, tinctures, everything involved. This is why the 12 passive cluster with the attack speed is so nice. Okay, that's 5% or 4% increased attack speed on every single node. You really want to get that attack rate number up as high as you can. And honestly, anything less than 5 doesn't feel quite so good. 55% evasion. Max fizz hit 10k minimum. I would say the most dangerous thing in maps is actually not any one particular map modifier, is Delirium. Delirium is really rough because you can't freeze your way, you can't off-screen freeze your way through a map without ever being in contention of getting hit by delirious effects. A lot of it is physical. When you have map mods or Eldritch Altar downsize, fizz is extra taken, and those numbers start cranking up real high, it gets quite rippy for this build. I've found that Delirium is actually the most dangerous thing in maps by far. Seems to be more dangerous than any monster type, any map mod combo, really. It always just seems to come from Delirium. like usual, you know, on hit, after death AoE effects. That's been the name of the game for quite some time, actually. And it's definitely something that affects bows. Last thing to look at, as promised, is the Mercenary. Okay, Crown of the Tyrant, getting the Flat Lightning in this way. I also have, at least currently, Flat Lightning on this quiver, so I'm definitely getting the lightning necessary to shock, minimum shock, to get those shocks up, whether it's Tornado Shot or Storm Rain. By the way, since we're now, especially since we're now Fizz conversion, Storm Rain is going to be doing enough lightning damage typically anyway, but it's nice if your Tornado Shot itself will shock enemies. Using Perkle's Toe, that corruption is not even right on here. Polaric Devastation over here. Kingmaker is very good. Of course, these gloves are actually not useful at all without another aura, so yeah, scuffed Merc at the moment. Belt of the Deceiver. I know those Chaos Boots help for Reflect. These are really, really nice boots otherwise. With Elemental Hill Spectrum, the Sapped Ground is super important, but actually it doesn't matter so much now. In fact, I was going to do Scorch Boots, I remember. Oh yeah, just remembered I was going to do that. And then Calm's Heart really helps with the Flame Link. You can look up Flame Link to see how much extra damage this is. It's pretty insane how much extra flat fire this is. Really helps kick in Trinity, even when things aren't 100%, you know, max chill and froze at the same time, to get Trinity working the hard way. It really helps out. So yeah, really it's just about having a Merc that can use Kingmaker and Flame Link. So there is a potential that I swap to a Doriani Merc, but I don't know, man. I mean, then I can do his Admiral again. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this body armor with all the stats this gives if I switch this out. You'll notice that my gear is not 1-for-1 on the guide. The guide has better gear than what I have. You could say I worked with what I had. I crafted most of this about like what I said in the guide, but you know, there's always room for improvement, and that's why we keep playing. That's why we keep playing the game. And it's not hard to find motivation when you're at the promised land known as Tornado Shot Swap. That really is when the game gets its most exciting for me, and I very much look forward to making some farming videos for you guys coming up in the near future, as well as, you know, an ultimate endgame build update. I know this video is still pretty long for just being kind of a first look at things, but I figured I'd, you know, kind of deep dive into it. Yeah, a lot of new things coming into play, and I know some of you are excited to maybe swap to Tornado Shot at some point this league. Maybe give bows a chance, because, you know, hey, it's a bow paradise, right? Yeah, with that, we'll leave you for the rest of the video as a final farewell to, you know, all that, the fun memery. Probably. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Heatshiver. Sheath game, Shari. Listen, Gaib. Shuma Hoki. Eruditina Heshidani. Nelisan al Gaib. Ruin Dimenaruk. Ashiki. Listen, Al Gaib.